Hmm.
Hey guys, I'm Retrograde. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to show you my Fire King deck that I took to the Columbus Regional. Shout out to my wife for letting me play so much Yu-Gi-Oh! And shout out to Isaac for introducing me to Yu-Gi-Oh! In the first place. Without any further ado, let's get right into the deck. The first card I want to talk about is Ash Blossom. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it's both non-engine, right, because it's Ash Blossom, but it's also engine because it's fire. You can destroy it off of island to get your Fire King cards into rotation. And that's probably why Fire Kings is such a good deck, whether you're just playing with the structure deck, or whether you're playing the Dia Bellstar engine, or you're playing with the new Phantom Nightmare support. This deck's going to be really good because Ash Blossom serves so many purposes, and it's already the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? But on top of it being the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, in Fire Kings, it's also engine for you. So that's probably why this deck does so good. That's why I want to show this card first. Absolute must play 3 of in this deck. You can even destroy it during your turn to get your engine going. And then if you have Sunlight Wolf and Heat Soul, you can go for the Heat Soul line and add this back to your hand off of Sunlight Wolf in the process. So you don't even lose the effect during your opponent's turn to negate a search. So have to play 3 copies of this, best card ever. 1 copy of Barong. You can play it at 2 if you want. I play it at 1 because I play 3 Tenki. I play 1 Rangbali. So Rangbali is an absolute must-have in this deck. You have to play it because you lose to evenly matched. That's why I play 1 Fire King Rangbali. Play 3 Ponics. So another 3 of because obviously it's a starter for your deck, but it's also an extender because it can summon itself from hand. So if you open it and you already have Sanctuary and Island and another fire, you can just wait to special summon this card using its own effect. Which is really good, and obviously you can search Skyburn or Circle, depending if you're going first or second. So play that at 3 of, because it's nice to see in your hand always. Another card that's always good to see in your hand is Arvada. There's a couple duels where I just normal summon this and then pass to my opponent with 4 other Fire King cards in my hand, and it actually ends up being 3 to 4 interruptions because of Kieran, because of its monster negate effect, because of Rangbali's effect. So you can actually just stop a lot of people going first with this. You can also stop a lot of people going second because you can normal summon this for your 1 action against Centurion or other oppressive decks and use it to stop their main strategies. So I play 3 of it because it's good to see in your hand, and also its graveyard effect is really relevant. So if you don't play 3, you're not going to have as much grind game. So 3 copies of this for me, and as well as 3 copies of High Avatar Kieran. So this card is also good at 3 because you want to see it in your hand as an extender to dodge impermanent effect failure, and you also want to see it in your deck after you've used a couple copies. That way you can use its Monster Reborn effect as well as its Pop effect during the grind game. Comes up quite a bit. So 3 copies of it. Level 8 too is also really relevant. Then 3 copies, of course, of Garunix. I play 3 copies of this for the grind game and because I always want to see it in my hand. Obviously, if you don't have Island, it can kind of suck, but that never happened to me during the tournament, which was 9 rounds. So I think playing 3 copies of it is safe, and it's pretty good to see in your hand as long as you have Island. That way you can use your search off of Island for something else, and either leave this on field or, of course, just use it as a body for a link material. I really like playing 3 copies of this card. So that's it for the engine monsters. Let's get on to the spells. I play 1 copy of Circle. So Circle, you have to play 1 copy of this to be able to push for game. I think any good Yu-Gi-Oh deck in today's meta has to be able to push for game. So Circle's really good. Obviously, you can dodge impermanent effect failure in the grind game. And then also 1 copy of Skyburn to go with it. This is kind of for going second. This is kind of for going first. Although obviously both can kind of be used going second or first. But traditionally you want to search this to break your opponent's board. Traditionally, you want to search this to push for game. 2 great quick play spells. You can get a lot of surprise OTKs and dodge Nibiru at the same time by playing this too if you use it during the battle phase. I did that once or twice in Columbus. It was really useful. I play 3 Pot of Extravagance. This is probably my favorite card and my most hated card in my deck. It sucks to draw more than 1 copy of this. It really does. Statistically, it shouldn't happen often, but I ended up doing that like 4 or 5 times during the tournament. However, there was 2 times where I was going second. I had Impermanent Ash in my hand and one of these. I was like, this is awesome because I can burn my Ashen Imperm on my opponent's turn, and then just replace those 2 cards on my turn with Extravagance. So it ends up being really, really clutch. Even if you brick off of it or draw multiple copies off of it, it's still worth it in the end for me because you don't ever use your extra deck with this deck. Oddly enough, I ended up losing a lot of the times I used my extra deck. So I think this card actually just helps you to rely on your Fire King cards in your main deck to win consistently. So 3 Extrav for me as well as 3 Tanky. Now I do play Forbidden Droplet, and that's the main reason why I play 3 Tanky. Tanky can make you lose to Droll, unfortunately, but it's just a nice way to see any of your Beast Warrior cards, your level 4 Fire King monsters. And like I said, Regbali is an absolute must-have in this deck. So this really helps me see my Regbali so I don't lose to Evenly Matched. It saved me, I think, twice during the Columbus Regional, so I'm definitely not regretting it. However, maybe I would cut 1 or 2 copies of it in the future. I'll talk about that a little bit later. 3 copies of Sanctuary and 3 Island. I know this is kind of overkill, but my logic is that I want to have lots of cards to send for Forbidden Droplet. And I also want to be able to top deck this card so that I can just get my engine going with any fire monster. Also, I didn't want to have to, lose by drawing all hand traps or non-engine. And so what you can do, if you're playing like a hand trap that's Effect Veiler that's not a fire type, you can normal summon it and link for Salamangreat Almirage, and that way your island is always live. And of course, like I said, you can destroy Ash Blossom to search or get your engine going as well. So that's why I played 3 and 3. Yes, I did draw too many copies of it several times, and it did cost me a couple games at Columbus, but overall, I'd say it did more for me than not. So kind of similar to Pot of Extravagance in that way. Could cut a copy of this too, as well as a copy of Tanky. But I'll show you the rest of my non-engine. I played 3 droplets. It was very good for me. I main decked 3 evenly matched. Now, this is my meta call, if you will, for the Columbus Regional. I stole 2 games with it. I never really saw it after those 2 games though, so I couldn't really tell you if it was good or not after that, but it did save me twice, so I am thankful that I played it in my main deck. Definitely surprised a lot of people. A lot of people say this card is weak against Rescue Ace and Unchained, but I think that's only true if you're side decking it, because then they kind of expect it. But if you main deck it and you go second in the first game, like if you lose the die roll, this card is just so free. You could also argue that if you're playing it in your main deck and you go first, it's a dead card in hand, but honestly, your engine should be winning you the majority of your duels when you go first. So it doesn't matter if you see it in your hand when you go first. It's also a trap card to send off a Forbidden Droplet, which is kind of nice. And then I play 3 copies of Infinite Permanence. My main theory was I wanted to resolve evenly matched as much as possible. That's why I played the Droplet and the Impermanent Extrav. That way I can consistently resolve evenly matched against my opponent, even if they have monster negates on the field. So Imperm is kind of clutch in that way. Onto my side deck. That was a 40 card main deck. Onto my side deck. 3 Fencing Fire Ferret. This card I'd probably move to the main by cutting a Tanky and or a Fire King Island. It pops a monster and it burns them for 500. One of your opponent's monsters, I should say. I did use this for time win condition, and I did go into time once and I won with it. So I'm glad it paid off, but honestly I didn't side it in too often. I didn't really see it too often either. So could be cutted, could be put in the main deck. Do what you want with Fencing Fire Ferret. I played 3 copies of it and then didn't get punished for it, but honestly I didn't see it too often, so I can't really tell you if it's good or not. 3 copies of Droll. I never really used Droll when I needed to. I sided it in against Unchained, but it doesn't do much in that matchup anyways, and I didn't even see it. So again, I really can't tell you if this card is clutch or not because it didn't come up too much for me. 3 copies of DD Crow. I double DD Crow'd a Tier Limits opponent, so that was pretty relevant. Otherwise, yeah, it's a normal summon to turn into Almirage for the Fire King combo. Yeah, not too much to say about DD Crow. It hits everything, but it doesn't really hit everything hard. So you definitely need to see it in tandem with another hand trap, but it's pretty decent in the side deck, I guess. Dark Ruler No More. So I played this so I could resolve evenly matched if my opponent was playing a D-Shifter deck, because D-Shifter doesn't let you use Forbidden Droplet, so I'd side out my droplets and put this in instead. So yeah, it's a pretty good card. It won me 2 duels, I think. But I didn't really see it besides those 2 duels. It's a pretty good card though. It's good against the rogue as well, so consider that when you think about siding in Dark Ruler No More. And then I sided in 3 Judgments for going first. I think this card, I saw it one time at the regional. It was 9 rounds. I saw it once, and it did help me win that duel. It's a pretty good card, but you could lose in time with it, so you got to be careful. That's it for the side deck and the main deck. Now the extra deck, which is the least important part of this profile, because like I said, I never really used it much. We talked about Owl Mirage being able to turn a hand trap into a fire, which is good. Anima, I stole my opponent's Abomination against an Unchained player one time because he put it in the wrong zone, so that was cool. Won me 1 duel. I wanted to see it another time, but I actually banished it off of Extravagance, which was unfortunate. Linkuriboh isn't important unless you have Heat Soul, so I don't really know why I was playing this because I don't play Heat Soul, but if you do play Heat Soul, you should definitely be playing Linkuriboh for that Heat Soul line. I summoned SP Little Knight once, and I did use its effect. However, it didn't help me win the duel. I was going to win anyways, so I really didn't need SP Little Knight, but obviously you want to play this card so you can have it when you need it. I didn't really need it, but yes, you probably should play SP Little Knight with Fire Kings. 1 IP Masquerena. This card is hypothetically really good. However, I didn't summon it once, so I didn't really need to summon it once either. There's a couple of lines you can do with it. However, like I said, I didn't really need it. And honestly, leaving your Fire Kings on board going first is kind of the play. And that was my goal anyways. And that seemed to work out best for me. So maybe you could cut this for another toolboxy Link monster. Maybe you can add Heat Soul instead of this. I played a Fire Charmer. I pushed for game once with this card. So that was cool. I played Underworld Goddess just so I could out a Towers-like monster, but I never really summoned it. I don't think I ever could have summoned it either, so not super relevant for this event, but it could come up. That's why I put it in here. I play 1 Appaloosa for the IP Masquerena, never summoned it. Then I play 3 Hyang just so that I can always see it if I banish 1 or 2 copies of it off of Extravagance. I'd say this is the only extra deck monster that you need consistently. Usually when I summon it, I lose, and I think that was true every single time I summoned it during this regional. But I think that it kind of threatens your opponent. Even if you don't summon it, it threatens your opponent with the Sanctuary. So say if you go first, you set up your board. They're always kind of scared of this monster. So even though you don't summon it, you probably get the benefit of it just because your opponent tries to play around it, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of nice to always have that threat live. 1 Hope Harbinger. This actually did win me a duel once. It was kind of stupid. My opponent kind of misplayed into it. But yeah, generic Spell Negate. Pretty relevant. Good against Pearly, I guess. 1 Coach King, another time card. Obviously, it's really good because you can draw 3 cards off of it. I never summoned it, though, so it is what it is. 1 Typhon, 1 Zeus. I never summoned the Zeus, so you can cut that if you want. And then Typhon, I did summon a couple times, and I wanted to summon it 2 more times. I never won with it, but I could have won with it if I had it, but I banished it off of Extravagance. So I guess that is another reason why you wouldn't play Extravagance, because you can't pick what you banish, or you could simply cut other cards in your extra deck and play more copies of this if you can afford it. Honestly though, you don't need it. You don't need any of your extra deck. The only thing I would really change about this is I would cut maybe Droplet and Evenly Matched, and then maybe cut Tanky as well. And you can play 3 copies of Kashtira or Fenrir and 1 Kashtira Riseheart. That way you have a way to get to a fire off of Fenrir. And then of course you have the Fenrir Interruption going first, the Fenrir Interruption going second. Fenrir is just a big body. Fenrir is an extender because you can use it as link material. There's just so much you can do with Fenrir in this deck. I don't have Fenrir's, or 3 copies of it, and I don't have Kashtira Riseheart, so I didn't end up playing it. But that is one thing I do think would be better than playing 3 Tanky, 3 Droplet, and 3 Evenly. Or if you just don't like one of these cards, you can play 2 or 3 copies of Fenrir and then 1 Kashtira Riseheart. Kirikara is another card you could also play with this deck. Obviously, the Diabell Star engine is really good, but as you guys know, I don't play anything meta. I just play Rogue. I play Machines. This isn't Machines, but it's 3 structure decks, so I had a lot of fun at the Columbus Regional, and I had pretty good time, and I went 7-2, got my invitation. So I can now just play the rest of the season stress-free without having to try to get my invitation with the rogue decks. But yeah, you guys should try out Fire Kings if you haven't already. And I hope you guys like this video and learned something and can benefit from it. I'll see you guys in my next video. Until then, duel on.